Okay, so we'll now look at this is biology. We'll continue with now cell organization. Remember last time we talked about cells, microscope, characteristics of living things, and also specialized cells. So look at also cell organization. Cell organization, what is it about? So when you look at a group of specialized cells, remember we talked about the specialized cells, Paddy said cells, talked about neurons, we talked about white blood cells and all those. Please make sure that you know them. Know the function, the adaptations, because they can bring any one of them in the exam. A group of specialized cells having the same structure or function will make up a tissue. So if you get cells, you put them together, they are going to give you a tissue. And there are four basic types of tissue. Okay, there are four basic types of tissue, but let me just give you examples depending on your level. You are going to have bone. Bone is a tissue which is made up of different cells. You are also going to have epithelium. Epithelium is, if you look at your skin, what lines your skin is a layer which we call epithelium, and that is tissue. Also have padded tissue. We also have the spongy tissue. Blood is also tissue. Okay, the epidermis. So a group of tissues which are going to be put together to be able to work out a specific function or form an organ. And organs we have includes the roots for plants, the stems, the leaves, the liver for animals, the skin, the heart. A group of organs which perform the same function or a specific function will make up a system. And the systems include the cardiovascular system, the digestive system, the excretory system, endocrine, nervous, skeletal, and these others. Okay. And then now a group of systems performing one function will make up an organism. So from cell to tissue, tissue to organ, organ to system, system to organism. Like that. You need also to understand about transport across a membrane. When things are moving across a membrane, they can either move by diffusion or osmosis or even active transport. Now, what are these? Starting with diffusion, what is it really? When you're talking about diffusion, you are going to have things on one region going to another. Let's say here I've got particles, and then we have got, let's say this is just a difference. It's not anything, it's not any barrier anywhere. Let's say there's a person who spreads perfume at this point. Because where this person is, there is perfume, we say perfume here is highly concentrated. So it will go to another person here who didn't apply that perfume. So the perfume concentration is low. So the perfume will be felt by this one by diffusion. Diffusion is the movement of particles from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration down a concentration gradient. So it is actually flowing from high to low, so down a concentration gradient. So you can have experiments to get to prove diffusion, but that's not necessary for here. Okay. Now, what is the importance of diffusion? What happens is that in the lungs, remember, you are going to breathe in air. That air that you breathe in has got oxygen. Now that oxygen has to move and go into blood. So oxygen which is in the lungs will be able to move from the lungs to go to blood. And then when it goes from to blood, it doesn't perform its function in the blood. It needs to go to tissue. It needs to go to cells so that they can do their function. So the oxygen will now move from blood and then go to tissue. And that O is going to be by diffusion. Carbon dioxide does the opposite. Oxygen will move from the lung, remember, and then it go into blood, and then from blood is going to go into tissue to do the function. Carbon dioxide will move from tissue to the blood and then from blood to the lung so that you can breathe it out. And that is also by diffusion. Dissolved food, when you get to eat, the food is going to dissolve in blood and that is going to move by diffusion from the blood into tissue so that it can be used. And then also some metabolic waste. The body makes up waste products like urea, and these will move from the tissue into the blood by diffusion. Carbon dioxide also needed for photosynthesis in plants will be able to move from the atmosphere to the leaves by diffusion because of moving from high concentration to low concentration. Same with water vapor, it can move out of the air spaces of the leaves during transcription, transpiration by diffusion. So you need to know these examples, okay? You need to know these examples because they can ask you to state the importance of diffusion. Now, how about osmosis? Osmosis is specific to water. It's a movement of water from where it is high to where it is low. So we say that osmosis is a movement of water from a region of high water potential to a region of lower water potential. But for osmosis, there is a membrane. It's not like diffusion. So you need to finish to say through a selectively permeable membrane. And we say selectively permeable because it doesn't allow anything to pass through, just some things which can pass through. Now, what we are saying that osmosis is a movement of water molecules from high water potential to lower water potential. What does water potential mean? Water potential is a measure of the capacity or the tendency of water molecules to move from one solution to another. What is the capacity of water to move? So on one end there is a high capacity for water to move. The other end there is low capacity for water to move. So the end where water can easily move, there is high water potential. So when a solution is more concentrated, meaning that doesn't have a lot of water, it has got a lot of solid. For example, if you are making zigolo, okay, you get a sugar solution. If you have got a lot of sugar and little water, we say that that solution is concentrated, and so because it is concentrated, it has got a lot of sugar other than water, so it has got a low water potential. And something that is less concentrated has got a high water potential. The selectively permeable membrane will allow things to pass depending on their size. Small molecules will pass, big molecules cannot pass. This is why you can see these small water molecules can pass to the other direction like that. Now, osmosis does affect living organisms. Depending with whether you're talking about plants or animals, osmosis will be able to give its effect. Now, let's say we have got a solution. Say we have got a cell This is a cell here. This cell has got its own water potential. And now let's say we put it in a bucket that contains water. Okay, we put it in a bucket. So if the concentration of water here is high, not the concentration, but if the concent not the concentration of water, but just the concentration. Let's say this solution is highly concentrated, meaning that it has got a lot of particles. And then the cell, its concentration is low. What do we conclude about that? So if the solution has got a high concentration in reference to the cell, we say that this solution is hyper. Hyper means higher than. So it is higher than the cell. So it's hypertonic. But if the cell had a higher concentration than the solution, that is known as hypotonic. If the cell and the solution had the same concentration, that is known as isotonic. So you need to understand these terms because they affect the way water moves. Let's say, for example, we're talking about an hypertonic solution. How does it affect movement of water? So for an hypertonic solution like this one, it means that it has got a high concentration. Remember, high concentration means low water potential. So what does that mean? It means that water is more inside the cell. So water will start moving from the cell because it is more. Okay. So always for hypertonic solutions, water will be able to move from the cell. And what will happen is that the cell becoming smaller. And this is the one you can see here. For plants, when a cell loses water, that is known as crenation. Take note of that. Crenation. Now, if it was the other way around, say here if the concentration was low and then the concentration inside the cell was high. What does that mean? It means that inside the cell, because the concentration is high, it means that there is little water. Little water. And the effect of that is that because the concentration outside the cell is low, low concentration means that there is more water. So water will start moving into the cell and the cell will start to become big. But because an animal cell doesn't have a cell wall which protects cells from bursting, the cell will be able to break, and that is known as cell lysis. And cell lysis happens when the solution is hypotonic. Why is it hypotonic? Because the concentration of the solution is small in reference to the concentration of the cell. Is this okay? Mary, is this making sense? Now, the same way is going to also happen for animal cells. When you place an animal cell in an hypertonic solution, remember the meaning of hypertonic solution is that the solution has got a lot of ions than there is water. Okay, that is hypertonic. So what will be the effect? Let me represent this. Say this is your medium that contains, this is a medium like that, and this medium contains a solution and this is a cell. If this solution is hypertonic, it means that this solution has got less water and a lot of salt, meaning that the cell is going to be hypotonic. It's going to have a lot of water. What happens is that the water will start to move out of the cell to go into the solution. And so the cell will become small. But for a plant cell, we don't call it, what did we call the other one? We don't call it crenation. Instead, we call it plasmolysis. So the cell will become plasmolysed. Look at what has happened to the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm has reduced because water has moved. But when you place the solution in the cell in an hypotonic solution, hypotonic means that it has got a lot of water. Water will start moving into the cell. So the cell become turgid, to become strong. The thing is that because of the cell wall, it can't burst. It can't burst. So the cell is being protected from bursting. It will just become strong, and that is known as the turgidity. Please take note, they can bring any one of these diagrams, either for the plant or for the animal in the exam. You need to know the process. You need to know if it has become turgid. Has it been put in an hypotonic solution or in an hypertonic solution? So what happens actually is the presence of water in plants. Okay, so the presence of water in plants forms what is known as an hydrostatic skeleton. Hydrostatic skeleton allows the plant to be able to withstand or to have mechanical support. That is why plants can stand straight, because they have got water. Otherwise, if they didn't have, the plant would fall like that. So water gives hydrostatic skeleton. Hydrostatic skeleton is a skeleton or the strength created because of water. But when plants, for example, a potato that has been peeled like that, is placed in an hypertonic solution. Normally, what was supposed to happen is that when you place it in an hypertonic solution, it's supposed to lose water to become plasmolysed. So for a peeled potato, it's going to lose water by osmosis, and then it will become what we call as flaccid or flabby. Take note of that, all right? And in a living plant, it is going to live to a condition which is known as wilting. So when a plant loses a lot of water, it's going to wilt if you place it in an hypertonic solution. There is temporary wilting and permanent wilting. Temporary wilting is one that can be reversed. So if you start, say, getting to water that plant, it will start gaining water and then it will restore it to come back to normal. Think of that process when let's say you have got vegetables, before they can actually wither out. There's a point where they fall because they are weak. That is what is known as wilting. Permanent wilting cannot be restored, meaning that the plant has already died. So this is why it is not advisable to apply too much fertilizer on plants. Because if you apply too much fertilizer on plant, what will happen is that the plant will start losing water and then it is going to wilt. There is also active transport. Now, active transport is the movement of substances using energy. The difference is that you don't move from high concentration to low concentration. Instead, active transport is things will move from low concentration to high concentration. But then there is ATP. ATP is a form of energy. That is why things can move from low concentration to high concentration. And an example that we can give is For ions to be able to move uh, from the root hairs and then go up the plant, it needs ATP, it needs energy because moving from low concentration to high concentration. Okay. It's different with water. Water moves from down going up by what we call capillary action. Water is attracted to the walls of the plant, and water is attracting other water molecules as they move up. So they don't even require energy. But for minerals, they require energy for them to move up a plant. So that is why the process is active transport.